Hi, Alison. Hi, Vijay. Hi, Josh.
Hi, Junko. So are we ready to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. My name is Vijay Xu, and I'm the research director for the Go System Smart City focus areas. I'm also the group manager for the Scalable Computational Intelligence Group at TAG. Go System is a UT Grand Challenge, and whose mission is to developing human AI partnerships that benefit society. And smart city technology have a great potential to contribute to these missions. So to advance knowledge and research around smart cities, and we have these consortiums to welcome researchers and city officials and other people interested in the smart city technology to join for discussion. So we plan to meet twice a month, but our schedule is a little bit disrupted right now. So each time we will have a special meeting. We offer 15 minutes of the lighting presentation and followed by some question and answer and the discussions. And we hope to use this format to share the latest developments, both in the universities and in the industry on what's the smart city technologies and to fostering some new research and collaborations. So for today, and we're happy to have the presentation from Junfeng and Josh. They have been working on the Austin Housing Analysis project, which is a project I'm also part of it. The Austin Housing Analysis is one of the year two Go system projects that aims to build a predictive AI system that can test the past and future regulatory scenarios and help from the affordable residential development policy in Austin's. Junfeng is an associate professor in the School of Architecture at the UT Austin, and he's also the chair for the UT Go System Grand Challenge this year, and the chair for the Smart City Bridging Discipline Programs, and the director for the Urban Information Labs. Josh is a third-year PhD student here. Well, so anyway, so I leave the self-introduction to Josh, and then I will pass the screen to Josh and Junfeng.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you very much for the introduction. I will go very briefly about this project. So this is second year Go System project. So we are trying to use AI system, trying to understand what policy or decisions have contributed to the housing price or housing affordability in city of Austin in the last 30 years. Specifically, we're going to explore 4 different policies. The first policy is called ADU, accessory dwelling units. That means you can build a separate detached house in your own land. The second policy is TOD, transit-oriented development. That's very relevant to the current project Connect. We're trying to understand how light rail bus rapid transit is going to affect the housing price instead of Austin. The third one is called historical district. That means, what does that mean to live in a historical district neighborhood? The fourth one called green energy or green building policy. That means how the Austin energy policy on green building can affect your house value. So today, Josh will present some initial study results on the first policy topic, ADU impacts. So please stay tuned. We will present more result on the different policy impacts. So without further ado, I will turn the presentation to Josh. Josh will start.
All right, thank you, Junfeng. And thank you, Weijia, and thank you, Allison, as well. So, like Junfeng was saying, this is a research project that began in the fall and will continue through the summer. So we're in the middle of it right now. The presentation here is going to be preliminary findings, specifically about the city's ADU policy and the impact of the development of ADUs in the city over the past 20 years. My name is Josh Conrad. I am a doctoral candidate in the School of Architecture. I am a research assistant on this project for this year, and I'm happy to be working with everybody. We have a big team of people from a variety of different disciplines in the School of Architecture in the planning program, but also in the Department of Electrical Computer Engineering, and also at UT Libraries, and then also Weijia at TAC. So for this presentation, I'm going to be showing first an overview of our data model and the sources of our data, and what it what it can show. Two, the metrics that it's able to show, and then three, I'll be able to show some preliminary findings about the impact of policy on the built environment as observed through this data. So first, for the data model and sources. The data that we use is public data. It's parcel level property tax data from the Travis Central Appraisal District, which is our county-wide tax appraisal entity. It's GIS data. We're able to get a map of each outline of each parcel with attributes associated with it, which are used by the TCAD's mass appraisal system to produce property appraisals, property value appraisals of yearly. We were able to get from TCAD these property appraisals, these yearly property appraisals back to 1993 for every property in the county. The data model that we use combines all of these years together into a single time series data set per parcel. So we're able to select a parcel and view how its attributes have changed over time, specifically its property value, but also attributes such as its age and its building type as well. I should point out that the property types that TCAD specifies have a range of I show them over here in this legend of A1, A2, A through B4. These A codes are referred to single family units, and these B codes refer to multifamily units. I'll go into some more detail about those later. But you can see on the map here, I've begun to show those different types of housing around the city. For this example here that I'm showing, you can see that this property had what's called an A1 house, which is a standard single family house built in 1928 that existed up until 2016. And then you can see here that in that year, in 2017, there was a change in where 2 single family houses were built on the property. And then in the following year, it changed to 2 separate records categorized as A4. A4 refers to a condominium agreement. So what happened here was that the front house and the back house were sold separately through a condominium agreement. And then that record changed in the TCAD data, and the property value changed as well when the previous house was demolished and these 2 new houses were constructed. I'm going to be using this example later in the presentation too, to talk about ADUs, because there was an ADU built in the back to make this development happen. Importantly, I'll be linking the TCAD data with the City of Austin's construction permit data, which is hosted on their open data portal. For example, in this example that I was just showing, you can see that in 2016, I have the building permits highlighted here in this table. In 2016, you can see there was a demolition permit issued. And in that same year, there was an R101 single family house permit issued for the front house. And then also that same year, there's an R102 secondary apartment, which is an ADU permit issued for the back house. So with this data, I'm able to link it to the TCAD data to get it, enrich the history of each of the parcels and analyze how and why the property value has changed over time. So this is where the machine learning comes in. We're going to be using machine learning regression and focusing on the property value rates of change over time and identifying which variables contribute most to being able to predict the rate of change of each property over from year to year. So some of the metrics we can show already. For this, I start with the really the most basic metric that we're able to show here, which is simply the median property value of a single family house in Austin over time from 1993 to 2018. You can see how it's over time, it's risen and it's had these kind of bubbles. I've been calling them over time. This first bubble is the post 2000, the 9/11 post the .com bubble, you might call it. And then further on in 2008, 2010, this would be the housing crisis bubble. And then currently, after about 2013, you can see that the median property value in Austin has risen significantly, which is an interesting trend that's happening in the city right now. Now, I put this, usually when I show property value, median property value, I also like to show the median household income in Austin, because this is really why we're interested in property value, because it is rising much faster than people's income. And it's when that happens, then less affordable housing becomes available to people in the city over time. So it's very important to pay attention to this and understand how and why this is happening. Another thing I want to clarify with the TCAD data is TCAD data is based on when TCAD does its mass appraisals yearly, it uses sales data. A property appraisal uses comparable sales to estimate the value of a property. And TCAD does this on a broad mass appraisal scale. So I was able to, thanks to the Austin Board of Realtors, I was able to graph the median property value of sales over time compared to the median property value of TCAD over time. And I've seen that the TCAD property values are generally about 10 or 20% lower than the MLS data. I'm not exactly sure why this is. TCAD may be being conservative, or they may, the MLS data is certainly, we're just seeing the median here, but there is a large range of property values, and TCAD could be considering kind of a lower range of property values. But it's important to note that the TCAD data is under the MLS median, and also it's 1 year behind the MLS, because each year that TCAD does its property value appraisals, it uses the previous year's sales data to do that. So the TCAD data is 1 year off. What we're able to do with the TCAD data is not just look at the median property value of citywide of houses, but we're able to look at different areas of the city and see how the property value has changed in different areas of the city. It has changed differently in different areas, and it's very important to understand the local conditions. So for example, you can see how this line at the very top here, which is rising and increasing at a greater rate than the other ones here, is this blue line corresponds to the M area of Austin. This is the Westlake Hills area. This is the area that contains the most expensive housing in Austin. You can also see that in the bottom the bottom grouping of neighborhoods increasing over time, if you select just those, they correspond to what's often called the Eastern Crescent of Austin. This is the area of where there are high populations of vulnerable people and socially vulnerable people, and where property values are lower than the rest of the city. I'm going to be focusing on this area because one of the you'll see on this chart here, this orange line, which corresponds to E. This is the kind of central East Austin area of Austin. You can see that this orange line has it's taking a somewhat different route than the others here. It's increased quite a bit more than the others, where in 1994 in this chart here, you can see that it's at the bottom of the median property value, but of the grouping. But in 2018, 2019, it's now at the top of this Eastern group. Now, if we look at this chart, you can see that all of the neighborhoods are generally increasing in value over time, which is as the median value has been showing. So it's hard to know, it's hard to really see how each neighborhood is increasing and decreasing differently from each other. And so instead of looking at the kind of raw property value over time, what I'm going to show you is the property value percentile over time. So this is percentile ranking calculated by grouping each of the parcels by each year and by each property type. So, for example, this orange line in East Austin, you can see in 1994, it's in the bottom 10th percentile of property value in Austin. But by the time it gets to 2019, it's just over the halfway mark, just over the 50th percentile, which is the median. And you can see the Westlake Hills area, M at the top here, has always been in the upper 90th percentile of property value in the city over time. So this is a kind of a relative depiction of property value over time, to see how these neighborhoods have increased and decreased relative to each other. And it's just it's remarkable to see how East Austin, Central East Austin, has changed so much differently than the other neighborhoods around it. We'll be diving into that. So with this percentile ranking, I grouped the areas into quintiles, 5 groups, in which the bottom 2 groups are low property value, medium, low, and then there's median, low, and then there's medium, high, and high. These 5 different groups. I use these groups in order to simplify the analysis and make it easy to produce visualizations like this, in which we're able to see areas that are high relative value and areas which are low relative value in the city right now. So you can see West Austin is the highest value, and in the Eastern Crescent here is the area in green. It also including this area in orange in here, which used to be green, but is now becoming more orange and red over time as the property values in these areas have increased a lot. With this TCAD data, since we have it back to 1993, we're able to look at how the relative property values have changed over time. So in these 3 images of Central East Austin, the first one from 2000, second one from 2010, third one from 2020, you can see how in the year 2000, just about all of East Austin was rated in the low, and fell into the low and medium low property value. But over time, over the 20 years, it's increased in different ways around East Austin. You can see here in the bottom area of Central East Austin, which is the East Cesar Chavez and Hawley neighborhoods down here. These properties have increased a lot over the 20 years. But areas kind of further east are still in the green. And you can see up here, this neighborhood all in red, that's the new Mueller development. So it's all new housing going on up there, whereas the rest of this is a mixture of new and old housing. With the TCAD data, we're not only able to show the property values, but we can map by other attributes of each parcel individually, including the age of the building here with this middle map. All of these maps you see here are from the year 2000, but they just vary in terms of their attributes that we're showing. So in the middle map, we're showing a map of age. I just happened to show this one as where the dark blue is built after 2006, and the light blue is built before 2006. So we can get a sense of newer and older housing in these areas. But then also, we can show the different building types, the different housing types in the city too. So I talked about A1 is the standard single family house. A2 is an interesting kind of more rare housing type, which is mobile homes on land that where the owner owns both the mobile home and the land itself. So this is not a mobile home park. This is the owner owns the land and the home. TCAD categorizes those separately, and those are interesting because they provide all of those parcels provide very affordable housing for people to purchase. A4 is a single family condo units, and I'll go into more about those because there's a wide diversity of the different types of housing within that category, A4. B1 is large multifamily apartment buildings. You can see the parcels are big in the map here. B2 is multifamily duplexes. B3 is multifamily triplexes. B4 is multifamily fourplexes. And you can see the duplexes are much more common than the other two in the city. Here you can see a number of them in East Austin, especially up here in this area near the Mueller development, which is this area which is locally known as Duplex Nation. Since we're able to show housing appreciation over time, we can use this metric to connect to research on previous research and current research on gentrification in Austin. The uprooted analysis, which identifies areas of Austin which are different levels of gentrification. This analysis identifies these areas by using both demographic change, data about demographic change from the U.S. Census, but also they use data about housing appreciation. Now, this study was limited in that they were only able to get median housing prices at the census tract level, which is kind of like the size of a neighborhood you can see here. But what we're able to do, because we have our data at the parcel level, is that we can overlay this onto this study of its uprooted study and really start to clarify how housing has appreciated over time and which areas are still affordable and which types of buildings are still affordable and which types of buildings have not been providing affordable housing. And that's where that's the interesting part. So this is where we're going to go into housing policy impact. And I hope I haven't been taking too much time here, but I'll kind of breeze through this. I think it's important to show the data model and the data first before we go into this. But our research questions are essentially asking how has housing changed in the city and what kinds of policies have affected that over time. We'll look. I'm looking as an example at the East Cesar Chavez and Holly neighborhoods here, where you can see that A4 condos have risen dramatically in the area, and we were curious what's going on with that. You can see with these two graphs here, each dot is a parcel plotted according to its relative percentile property value. And to its year built. So you can see that this grouping of houses built in the 1930s and 40s is back in the year 2000 was it was in the low percentile of property value, but by 2000, that group of housing has appreciated a great deal into the upper percentiles, while new housing that was developed is also in that upper percentile. But you can see in the red dots referred to the A4 condos, which actually have been providing a slightly less expensive housing than the new A1 housing that's been developing in the neighborhood. And so we're curious about what are these houses, and in this some of these red dots here actually seem to be reaching down into the medium and low property value and providing some affordable housing. And what are those? We should note that here, this on the right is the year built, or the parcels graphed by their year built, but on the right that is the year built, but on the left it's the same chart, but where the parcels are plotted according to their building area, their square footage. So you can certainly see that that there is a strong correlation between the size of the house and the price of the house. Of course, I think everyone knows that. And so when you're looking at these lower value units here, A4 units, do know that those are small units. We're looking at units under 1,000 square feet. We plotted every single parcel in the city. It's kind of a big mess. It's interesting to look at this. I won't go through it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the A1 housing. So we're just looking at everything except the A1 standard housing, because I'm interested in the growth of this A4 condos in the city. Throughout the city, it's grown since about the year 2000. And I've noticed that after the year 2000, before the year 2000, condos were often either in in large-scale apartment buildings, or also they were developed as part of like kind of a neighborhood of one-unit houses that had a condominium agreement altogether in a kind of gated neighborhood. But then after 2000, there has been a growth of these two-unit condos, which are I understand is developers often called site condos, where there is a front house and a back house on the same parcel, and each house is sold separately as in a condominium agreement. There's a lot of these in the East Asia Chavez neighborhood. In fact, most of the new development in the neighborhood has been these two-unit condos, which are in red here. And then you can see in blue, these are the multi-unit condos too. If we graph this, you can see the red two-unit condos are the ones that are in the upper value areas, and these blue three-unit condos are the ones that are actually providing the more affordable housing in the neighborhood. Those condos are, these are apartment buildings. These are in the East Cesar Chavez neighborhood. There's a number of those that have been built along 6th Street, and they have over the years since they've been built been providing some of the most affordable housing in the neighborhood. Although it's still pretty expensive. I mean, East Cesar Chavez it has appreciated greatly over the last couple of years. So how that connects with policy really is that the ADU policy in the city, which launched in about the year 2000. I'll show you this chart here. Before, when the city through their neighborhood planning program started creating neighborhood planning groups, which and allowed them to opt in to allowing secondary apartments in the area. But after the year 2015, the city created a new ordinance which allowed secondary apartments throughout the city. So just by plotting like where these ADUs are happening, you can see how the policy has affected where these ADUs are being constructed. And these ADUs are really in the East Cesar Chavez neighborhood. You can see this orange. This is the property. This is colored by their property value quintiles. It's the ADUs throughout the city are some of them are more affordable than others. In some neighborhoods, such as St. John's neighborhood up here and the Montopolis neighborhood, those ADUs are providing more affordable housing than the East Cesar Chavez. So it differs from neighborhood to neighborhood, and I think that's important for our housing analysis. We will be looking at really how this housing has changed at the neighborhood level. We really want to show these neighborhood snapshots and breakdowns and to show how because I believe that what we can really show is that policy should be tailored to the neighborhood level, and really pay attention, be able to pay attention to how the local conditions may be, how policy may be allow or impact affordable housing differently in different areas of the city. I have a lot more slides here. Unfortunately, I'm out of time, but we will be showing this impact on a variety of different other policies in the city, including light rail and historic district zoning. And we also have an open data portal in which we're going to be hosting all of our data at the end of the project. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh. I know you have a lot of slides, and
Yeah,
I was going to give you a hard stop now.
yeah, no, that's okay.
You can, I don't know, like maybe you can posting the AI housing open data portal link to the chat for the other peoples, or we can also posting them on the event page so people can checking them out. It's very interesting slides. Since we're a little bit out of time, I want to see if there's any question from audience. So one quick question is, so far, like, what do you see about like advantage of doing analysis at a parcel level versus like say at the neighborhood or higher level? Is there like a very strong advantage standing out?
Well, in the past, if you want to do analysis at the neighborhood level, you're limited to the Census Bureau's definition of a neighborhood, which is through their boundary, their census tract boundaries, which don't necessarily correspond to actual neighborhoods. They kind of do, but they also are not necessarily what you're looking for. A lot of times when you're doing studies in the city, you're looking at different areas that are not necessarily neighborhoods, or you're looking at sub-neighborhoods. Like, for example, for this historic district zoning, the historic districts don't follow census tracts. They follow historical development patterns. And if you want to study what's going on in historic districts, you have to really you have to be able to draw your own boundaries and analyze the properties within that boundary. So having a parcel level data allows you to define the area, the study areas however you want, and it's very powerful. So you're not beholden to the census tract.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the presentations, and we're a little bit run out of time, so we will just wrap up here. And thanks for everyone attending. And we will have another talk just next week, and from Dr. Yue Fan from the UC Davis, talk about some interesting talk. So if you're interested, we'll also have a website called smartcity.tech.utexas.edu. You can go there to looking at our event schedule and any upcoming events as well. Thank you very much. Hope you have a good day.
Thanks.